What if the coldest CEO in New York opened a glittery letter to Santa from three little girls and found his own long-lost childhood love hidden between the crayon lines? Before we start, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next slow burn stories about broken promises, second chances, and the kind of love that feels like finally coming home. By December, New York looked like a snow globe someone kept shaking. Strings of lights clung to fire escapes. Store windows were stacked with fake snow and real price tags. At Rockefeller Center, people held each other's hands and pretended the ice wasn't that cold. On the 38th floor of a glass tower in Midtown, Noah Hale watched it all from behind his office window. Down there, people bumped shoulders under scarves. Up here, the air hummed with the soft, expensive quiet of a room built to impress. His assistant had once joked that his corner office looked like the inside of a stainless steel watch, precise, polished, a little inhuman. He had shrugged. It wasn't wrong. On his desk, stacked neatly beside his laptop, sat a pile of envelopes. He eyed them like they were a strange species. Letters to CEO Santa. His head of PR had said brightly that morning, "It'll be great, and Noah, we ask employees' kids in some local schools to write letters to Santa, but instead of the North Pole, they come here. We pick a few to feature in a campaign. Every number has a story." She had beamed. "It'll make you look approachable." He had signed the approval without looking at the mock-ups. Now, alone in the fading light, he considered sweeping the entire pile into the recycle bin. He didn't like children's letters. They were too honest. He picked one up at random. The envelope was stiff with glitter glued around the edges. Pink, with a handful of star stickers clinging to the corner. It left a dusting of sparkle on his dark sleeve. He grimaced, brushing at the specks. Then, because it was already in his hand, he slid a finger under the flap. Inside was thick paper, folded twice. The handwriting was uneven, clearly a committee effort. "Dear CEO Santa," it read, "We are Lumi, Lyra, and Lark. We are 6. We are triplet sisters. Our mama says Santa is very busy with bigger problems. So we are writing to you because your name was on the flyer, and mama says CEOs are also busy, and maybe you know him." Noah snorted softly despite himself. "We don't need toys." The letters went on. "We share our dolls. We would like one thing for Christmas. Our blanket is ripped and mama gets cold at night because she lets us have the not ripped part. Could we have a warm blanket for mama? And if it's not too much, can someone come and read her a story on Christmas Eve? Because mama always reads for other people, but nobody reads for her." At the bottom, 3 names, each in a different color crayon. Lumi pink, Lyra purple, Lark green. And under that, in a smaller, careful script, "For our mom, Grace Miller. She is the best mama. Every lost child deserves a warm place to sleep. Mama says that." The line stopped him. Every lost child deserves a warm place to sleep. Ice cracked somewhere inside his chest. He had heard that sentence before. He could feel the plasticky crackle of thin library carpet under his hands. He could see the faded spines of donated books. He could hear a girl's voice, soft and stubborn, changing the ending of a story so it hurt a little less. "Not all princes find their way home," the younger version of him had muttered once. "Some kids just get lost and stay lost." And the girl had shaken her head, blonde ponytail swinging. "Every lost child deserves a warm place to sleep," she had said in reply, like it was a spell. "If the story forgets that, we will fix it." He had believed her, because when you are 10, and someone is willing to change the ending of a book just for you, you believe they might change the ending of your life too. Her name had been Grace. He read the line again on the letter. "Every lost child deserves a warm place to sleep." His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Hale, the quarterlies are ready. Email them," he said automatically. "Also, PR wants to know if they can start sorting the letters for content potential." His fingers tightened on the paper. "No," he said. A pause. "No," she echoed. "I'll go through them," he said, "myself." He released the button and flipped the letter over. On the back, in chunky graphite, Someone had scrawled an address, numbers and letters wobbling. A street in a neighborhood he hadn't set foot in for a long time. He should have put the letter back on the pile. He should have gone back to his spreadsheets and projections in the safe, cold comfort of numbers. Instead, he picked up his coat. The neighborhood looked smaller than he remembered. When he was a kid, everything had been huge. The brick buildings, the alleyways, the long, echoing hallways of the group home that sat 3 blocks down the road. Now, the buildings sagged, their bricks stained. A laundromat buzzed sullenly on one corner, its neon open sign flickering. Next to it, a storefront with hand-painted letters on the glass willow and bean. He checked the address in his phone. This was it. Through the window, he saw a small patch of light, a handful of tables, mismatched chairs, a counter with a crooked display case, a woman in a faded apron wiping down a table. Even from across the street, he knew her by the way she moved. Grace. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot, strands escaping around her face. There were lines at the corners of her eyes that hadn't been there when she was 16, but the set of her jaw, the way she leaned down to listen, those were the same. At a corner table, 3 little girls piled on one bench, pressed together like kittens. One had a band of tinsel around her wrist. Another was drawing stars on a napkin. The third was half asleep, cheek on the table. They were wrapped in a blanket that had clearly done too many winters. The fabric was thin, edges frayed. One corner was held together with safety pins. Grace finished with the table and went to them. She bent to tuck the blanket tighter around small shoulders. One girl mumbled, reaching up to cling to her hand. Grace smiled, that same stubborn, tired, luminous smile he remembered from nights in the orphanage library. Just for a second, Noah's throat closed. He had spent years training himself not to feel things too sharply. Feelings made your hands shake in boardrooms. Feelings made your voice crack when you were supposed to sound certain. Feelings got in the way. Now they flooded back in one ugly, beautiful rush. He thought of 10-year-old him, skinny and bruised, following Grace down the hallway as she smuggled him into the staff library after lights out. Her whisper in the dark. "If they won't give us a bedtime story, we'll steal one," she'd said. He had said, "If I ever get out of here, I'll come back for you." He had never come back. Sir, a stranger brushed past him on the sidewalk. "You okay?" He realized he'd stopped dead in the middle of the crosswalk, staring. He stepped back onto the curb. Inside the café, Grace picked up a book from a battered shelf and sat down with her girls. He could see her lips moving, hands shaping the air as she spoke. Story glowed around them like a small, defiant halo. Noah turned away. He didn't go in. He didn't knock. He walked back to his car with the letter in his pocket and the 20-year-old promise echoing in his ears. "If I ever get out of here, I'll come back for you." He'd gotten out. He hadn't come back. Not until now. That night, the city sparkled. His apartment did not. He owned 3 floors of a building in the nicer part of town, all steel and glass and designer couches no one ever sat on. The only decoration on the walls were abstract paintings chosen by someone from a magazine. He dropped his keys in the bowl by the door and stood for a moment, listening. The hollow air of the place hummed around him. On the kitchen counter, his laptop pinged with incoming emails. On the island, the stack of Santa letters waited in a neat pile, brought home by an efficient assistant. He set the pink glitter envelope on top. Another ping drew his eye to the tablet propped up by the coffee maker. A notification from his real estate division. Lease termination confirmed. Eastside Community Library. He opened it. A familiar address flashed on the screen. Noah scrolled. The building that used to house the community library 3 blocks from the old group home had been purchased by a Hale & Klein subsidiary. The rent had been raised. The library had lost its funding. Now the lease was terminated. The building sat vacant, waiting for a better offer. He stared at the words until they blurred. He remembered that library. Not just the one inside the institution, but the little branch where volunteers had once read to them once a month. The way Grace's eyes had lit up when they walked in, and the librarian had said, "Take as many as you can carry." He remembered her whispering, "One day, we'll have a place like this without anyone telling us it's closing in 10 minutes. Now, thanks to him, that place was dark. He closed the notification and pressed his palms into the counter until his knuckles turned white. He'd spent his adult life climbing a ladder out of the system that had chewed them up. He had told himself that more power meant more freedom, that if he got high enough, he could make sure others didn't fall through cracks. Somewhere along the way, his company had become the crack. He picked up the pink letter again. Our blanket is ripped. Could we have a warm blanket for Mama? And if it's not too much, can someone come and read her a story on Christmas Eve? He looked around his spotless, silent kitchen. He walked to the linen closet and pulled out a box he had never opened. A friend had sent it last Christmas when he joked about his minimalist decor. At least put this on your couch, she'd said. Inside was a thick wool blanket, soft and heavy, the color of warm cream. He ran his fingers over it, imagining it draped across thin shoulders in a small apartment. It was a small thing. It was not enough. He did it anyway. The box arrived at Grace's door 3 days later. It was early morning. The girls were still in their pajamas, hair wild, when the knock sounded. "Mama, it's Santa," Lumi announced, hurtling toward the door. "It's probably Mrs. Alvarez with cookies," Lark said sensibly, trotting after her. Grace wiped her damp hands on a dish towel and opened the deadbolt cautiously. No one stood in the hallway. Only a cardboard box sat on the mat, edges dusted with snow. There was no return address, only their apartment number, written carefully in pen. She brought it inside, set it on the table, and sliced the tape with a butter knife. On top, folded, lay a blanket so soft her fingers sank into it. It smelled faintly of laundry soap and something she couldn't name. The girls gasped. For us," Lyra breathed. Grace swallowed. The girls would assume that every good thing was for them. She wanted that to be true. She lifted the blanket and found, underneath, a tin of cookies and a book. The cover showed a night sky full of stars and a girl holding a lantern. "Winter Tales," the title read. On the first page, taped to the blank space above the publisher's logo, was a small note. "Your story saved someone once. You deserve warmth too." No signature? Grace stared at the handwriting. Neat, unfamiliar. Mama Lumi tugged her sleeve. "Who sent it?" Grace forced her throat to work. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Maybe Santa outsourced this year." Lumi squealed. "Mama gets the first blanket," Lark said firmly, already doing the math of fairness. Grace opened her mouth to protest, to say the girls should have it. Then she saw the look in their eyes, the certainty that she deserved something too. It undid her. "Okay," she whispered, "we'll share." That night, when the girls finally fell asleep, wrapped together under the new blanket, Grace sat at the small kitchen table with the Winter Tales book in front of her. She opened it to the first story and began to read. Somewhere across town, Noah sat in his silent apartment, the same book open on his lap. On his page, on the third line, a sentence read, "Every lost child deserves a warm place to sleep." He traced the words with a fingertip. "Grace," he murmured to no one. The volunteer form was supposed to be a formality. Hale and Klein's community outreach team had set up a holiday program employees could read stories at partner schools and community centers. It looked good on the website. Noah had never signed up before. He walked into the small office where the coordinator sat, a mug of cocoa in hand, her desk buried under flyers and clipboards. "Hi," she chirped, looking to volunteer. "Yes," he said. She blinked. She knew who he was. Everyone did. "Wonderful," she said, recovering. "We have spots at the hospital pediatric ward, the East Side School, Willow and Bean Cafe," he said. She frowned. "We have a partner cafe." "You do now," he said. "Put it on the list." She hesitated, then scribbled the name. "Okay," she said slowly. "Name." He almost said it automatically. Instead, he paused. "Noel," he said. She glanced up. "Like Christmas?" she asked. "Something like that," he replied. It wasn't a very good disguise, but it felt better than writing down Noah Hale and watching people fix their posture. 2 days later, he stood outside Willow and Bean again. This time, he pushed the door open. A bell jingled overhead. Inside, the cafe smelled like coffee and cinnamon and something frying in too much oil. A small crowd had gathered, kids on the floor, parents along the walls. Grace stood behind the counter, hair in the same messy knot, cheeks flushed from the heat. When she saw him, something flickered across her face. Recognition, then confusion. She didn't know from where. "Hi," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "You must be our story time volunteer." Noah. "Right." "Noel," he said quickly, "from Hale and Klein's program." She smiled, apologetic. "Sorry," she said. "I read the email too fast." He shrugged. "No worries." 3 little faces peered around the side of the counter. "It's him," Lumi whispered loudly. "The blanket smells like him." Lyra sniffed dramatically at the air. "It does," she declared. "Vanilla and office." Lark rolled her eyes with dark perspectives. "You can't smell office," she said. Then she looked at Noah. "Are you Santa's assistant?" "Something like that," he said quietly. They dragged him to the chair at the front, where a pile of picture books waited. "Pick that one," Lyra urged, pointing to Winter Tales. He picked it up, heart thudding. He sat. The children settled on the rug, cross-legged, eyes up. Grace leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching. He opened to the first story. His voice came out lower than he remembered it, but steady. "Once upon a time," he read, "there was a village where winters were long and cruel." The girls leaned in. He read about snow and lonely roads and lanterns and dark windows. At the end, the original text said, "And the child learned that sometimes home is just a story you tell yourself." He couldn't read it. The words stuck. He heard his own voice, younger, bitter, saying something similar. He heard Grace's voice, stubborn, changing the ending. He changed it now. Kashong. "And the child learned," he said slowly, "that every lost child deserves a warm place to sleep, and that if the story forgets that, someone kind will fix it." A hush fell. The kids didn't know the difference, and they just liked the sound of warm place to sleep. But Grace straightened after story time, after cocoa and crumbs and a dozen thank yous. When the last child had left and the cafe was quiet again, she approached him. He was stacking chairs, trying not to look at her too long. "Thank you," she said. "For today." The kids loved it. "Happy to do it," he said. She hesitated. "Where did you get that line?" she asked. He played dumb. "Which line?" "Every lost child deserves a warm place to sleep," she said. "You changed the ending." He met her gaze. Her eyes were the same as when they were kids, bright, searching, unwilling to let go until she had the answer. "I learned it from a girl in a foster home," he said quietly. "She used to sneak me into the library and rewrite the endings of stories." Her hand tightened around the dish towel. "What was her name?" she whispered. "Grace," he said. She stared at him. The cafe noises faded. Even the hum of the fridge seemed to step back. "Noah," she breathed. His chest ached, hearing his name in her mouth. "Hi, Grace," he said. For a heartbeat, she just stood there. Then she smacked his arm with the towel. "You disappeared," she said. "You complete idiot." He flinched, then laughed, because it sounded exactly like her. "I got adopted," he said. "They moved me out of state. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye." "You could have written," she said. "I did," he said. 3 letters. All came back, address unknown. The group home shut down. "They moved you too." "Oh," she said, deflating a little. "I thought you forgot." "Never," he said. It came out rough. She looked away, blinking fast. "You grew up," she said, attempting a lighter tone. "You have a jawline now." "So do you," he said. She snorted, wiping at her eyes. "Wow," she said. "Reunion banner is not what it looks like in movies." He smiled for real. It felt strange on his face, like using a muscle he hadn't in years. "No," he said, "it's better." In the weeks that followed, Noah became a fixture at Willow and Bean. Always as Noel, never as Noah Hale, CEO. He came by twice a week to read stories. Sometimes he fixed things, tightening a loose table leg, oiling the squeak in the bathroom door, patching a crack in the window frame with plastic and tape to keep the draft out. He brought books, left bread, Return the empty tin Grace tried to sneak back to him, filled with his own clumsy attempt at cookies. They were terrible. Burnt at the edges. Too much salt. The girls loved them. This one looks like a dragon, Lumi said happily, waving a warped cookie. It tastes like one too, Lark said solemnly, chewing anyway. Grace noticed the way Noah watched them when they weren't looking, like he was trying to memorize them in case someone came and took them away. She saw other things too. The way he flinched when someone mentioned Hale and Klein, the way his hand sometimes drifted to his phone, as if expecting it to bite him. One evening, after he'd wiped the last table and the girls were drawing on to-go cups with markers, she asked, "What do you do?" "Noel." He hesitated. "Consulting," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Funny," she said. "That's the answer everyone gives when they don't want to say." He almost told her, "I run the company that shut down your library. I sit in rooms where people talk about neighborhoods like yours as opportunities." Instead, he said, "I work with numbers. It's boring." "Then why do your shoulders look like they're carrying a truck?" she asked softly. He shrugged. "Bad posture," he said. She let it go for the moment. He went home that night to find an email in his inbox with the subject line Q4 campaign storyboard, CEO Santa feature. He clicked, slides loaded, photos from the volunteer program, sketches of scenes, and one frame was a drawing of a small cafe with a crooked sign, Willow and Bean. Another showed a woman at a table, 3 girls piled on her lap. The caption read, "Single mom of triplets gets a miracle from Hale & Klein's CEO Santa." Underneath, bullet points, engagement projections, recommended hashtags. His stomach turned and he scrolled, hands tight on the mouse. Final slide, a mock-up of him cleaned up headshot in a Santa hat standing with Grace and the girls, smiling at the camera. Her name printed neatly underneath. Hers, the girls, the neighborhood. He closed the laptop like it had burned him. If he did nothing, this would go ahead. It would be framed as generosity, heartwarming, good for the brand. To Grace, it would be another institution taking her life and turning it into a story for its own benefit. He had lived that before. He turned the laptop back on. The marketing team assembled in the conference room 2 days later, chattering as they set up their slides. Snow streaked slowly down the windows. Down on the street, people trudged with their heads bowed. Up here, lights were bright and coffee was plentiful. "Everyone's gonna love this," the head of PR said, tapping a manicured nail on her tablet. "We'll release it on Christmas Eve. CEO Santa answers a letter from 3 little girls. It's perfect." "What does the CEO think?" someone joked. "Will he cry on cue?" Noah walked in. Conversation died an awkward death. He was on time. That alone made people nervous. "Good morning," he said. "Morning, Mr. Hale," PR said, turning on the big screen. "We've got something we're really excited to show you." The storyboard appeared, slide after slide. He watched it again, this time with 20 pairs of eyes flicking between the images in his face. When it ended, the room waited. "Well," PR asked, too brightly. "Thoughts?" He took a breath. "No," he said. Silence. "I'm sorry," she asked. "We're not airing this," he said. Color drained from her cheeks. "We've already spent. Then we write it off," he said. Grace and her daughters are not content. They're human beings. A murmur. "With respect," someone at the table said carefully. "The entire point of the campaign is to show that we care about people." Is it caring?" Noah asked. "To take a woman who's been on the wrong end of systems her whole life and plaster her face on our website without asking if she wants that?" The PR head recovered. "We'll get a release," she said quickly. "She'll be compensated." "People love being chosen for these things." "She hasn't been chosen," he interrupted. "She's been targeted by our own pipeline." He tapped the tablet in front of him, pulling up another file. The same company that shut down her community library to chase a higher rent is now trying to sell itself as her savior. He said, "Does anyone else see the problem?" Faces around the table shifted. Someone cleared their throat. "Hale, we can't publicly connect those dots," one board member said. "It would be damaging." "It's already damaging," Noah said. "For her. for kids like the ones we used to be. They looked at him blankly. None of them had grown up in places that smelled like bleach and fear. He exhaled slowly. We will continue the volunteer program, he said. But we will leave that cafe and that family alone. No photos, no features, no press. Then what do we highlight for Q4 PR? Asked Weekly. Us, he said. Our own people, our own efforts, or nothing. We don't get to borrow her story to fix our conscience. The board member shifted again. This is highly irregular, he said stiffly. So was acquiring that building without considering the community inside it. Noah replied. We can start being regular by stopping this. He could feel eyes on him, judging, calculating lost impressions and wasted budget. He met their gaze without flinching. Being the Ice King had uses. If anyone has a problem, he added, they can bring it to me. No one spoke. The meeting broke up slowly, people leaving in clusters, murmuring. When the room was empty, he sat alone for a moment, hands flat on the table. His phone buzzed, a number from Grace's neighborhood. He answered on the second ring. Hello, is this? Noel, a woman's voice asked, uncertain. The elderly one who always sat by the window with a crossword. Yes, he said. It's about Grace, she said. She slipped on the ice by the old library. They took her to County General. The girls are here with me. They asked me to call you. His heart lurched. I'm coming, he said. Hospitals at night have their own kind of snow. White sheets, pale walls, nurses drifting from room to room like quiet storms. Noah hurried down the corridor, his lungs burning in a way that had nothing to do with the stairs. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. He passed a vending machine, a bored security guard, a crying toddler. Outside a small waiting area, 3 girls sat on plastic chairs. Lumi's cheeks were blotchy. Lyra's fingers were ink-stained where she'd been drawing on a napkin. Lark's jaw was clenched tight, hands folded too neatly in her lap. When they saw him, they all stood at once. Is Mama going to die? Lumi blurted. The question hit him like a physical blow. He dropped to his knees without thinking, meeting their eyes. No, he said firmly. She fell. She hurt her wrist. They're taking care of her. She is not going to die. How do you know? Lark demanded, eyes shiny but fierce. Because I asked the doctor. He lied if he had to. And because your mom is too stubborn to leave you for anything less than a dragon attack. Lyra hiccuped a laugh through her tears. An older woman, Mrs. Alvarez, the cafe regular, rose from her seat. I'll sit with them, she said, squeezing his shoulder. You go. He nodded. Grace's room was dim, save for the monitor glowing softly. Her wrist was wrapped tight in white bandage. A bruise bloomed along her temple. She looked small in the hospital bed, swallowed up by institutional linens. He stepped inside quietly, the door clicking shut behind him. Her eyes fluttered open. Noel, she mumbled, voice thick. Did I miss story time? You're not getting out of it that easily, he said, pulling a chair to her bedside. She managed a faint smile. How bad? She asked. Sprained wrist, mild concussion, he said. Bruised pride. The ice outside that old library never did fight fair. Her gaze slid to the ceiling. I went to look at it, she admitted. The building. I still do, sometimes. Stupid, right? It's empty now, like an ex who never calls. It should never have gone dark, he said. Since when do buildings owe us anything? She asked. He swallowed. Since we were kids who thought they might, he said. Silence settled, oddly gentle. Machines beeped softly. In the hallway, a cart squeaked by. I heard what your company did, she said suddenly. Buying places, raising rent, the library. Mrs. Alvarez told me. She used to work there. He opened his mouth, closed it. I didn't know. At first, he said. Then I did, and I didn't stop it. Not quickly enough. Why? She asked. There was no accusation in it, just weary curiosity. Because I was busy, he said. Being the kind of man who never went back to his old neighborhood. The kind who read about it in a quarterly and thought, We did what we had to do. Grace studied his face. Are you that man now? She asked softly. He looked at her bandaged wrist. At the faint scar near her hairline he recognized from a childhood fall. At the courage it took for her to ask the question, flat in a hospital gown. No, he said, I don't want to be. Her eyes glistened. I don't know how to let someone like you in, she whispered. I can barely keep the rent paid. I measure groceries and coupons. You live in the clouds, Noel, or Noah, whatever your real name is. He flinched. He hadn't told her. But of course she'd figured it out. The world talked. Google existed. I live in a glass box, he said. It's not the same thing. She huffed a quiet laugh and winced. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Grace, he said, when we were kids, I didn't believe I would ever have a home. I thought I'd age out, end up on a couch or a street, and that would be it. I remember. She said, you were very dramatic. You were very annoying, he said. Then, softer, you were the only one who ever fought the ending for me. He stared at his own hands. You told me every lost child deserves a warm place to sleep, he said. You believed that for me when I didn't? Let me do that for you now. She swallowed. I don't think I deserve. She waved vaguely at the air. Any of this? The blanket? The books? You showing up? It feels like a mistake. Like if I reach out, someone will snatch it back and laugh. His chest hurt. Then don't reach out, he said. Not yet. I'm right here. I'm not asking you to believe that you deserve it today. I'm asking you to let me believe it for you, until you can. Her eyes brimmed over. That's not how it works, she whispered. It's exactly how it worked, he said. Back then, when you sat on a torn beanbag and told me I'd find a home someday, you believed enough for both of us. If you hadn't, I don't know where I'd be. She closed her eyes briefly, tears sliding down. I'm so tired, she admitted, of being strong, of telling the girls everything will be fine when I'm not sure it will. Then rest, he said. Just for tonight, let someone else sit up and worry. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. Her fingers were cold. He wrapped them in his, thumb tracing idle circles on her skin. They didn't speak for a while. The quiet wasn't empty. It was full of all the things they didn't yet know how to say. At some point, her breathing slowed. Her hand went lax in his. He sat there until a nurse came in and gently told him visiting hours were over. In the hallway, Lumi barreled into his knees. Is Mama okay? She demanded. She's going to be fine, he said, bending to her eye level. She needs rest. And so do you. Lyra yawned theatrically. We made her a picture, Lark said, holding up a crumpled drawing of a house with too many windows. So she'll remember to come home. She will, he said. He looked at Mrs. Alvarez. Can you stay with them tonight, he asked. The older woman nodded. I've got an air mattress and too much tea, she said. We'll manage. He nodded. He would not sleep anyway. 2 weeks later, the for-lease sign came down from the old library building. Grace stood across the street, 3 small hands tangled in hers, and watched as workers carried in ladders and paint. What's happening, Lumi asked. The building is getting dressed up, Lyra said, for a party. Maybe it will be a bank, Lark said grimly, or one of those places with $9 juice. Grace swallowed. Noah walked up beside them, scarf wrapped around his neck, hair dusted with snow. Hi, he said. Hi, Grace said, hard hammering. The girls launched themselves at him in unison. You missed pancakes, Lumi informed him. But we saved you 1 piece of bacon. Best news I've had all day, he said. He looked at the building. So, he said casually, I did a thing. You bought it, Grace said. He winced. You make it sound like I shop for buildings the way you shop for coffee beans. Don't you? She asked. He sighed. Yes, he admitted. Sometimes, but this time is different. He turned to face her fully. The board wanted to turn it into offices, he said, or lofts, something profitable. I told them no. And they listened, she asked skeptically. I own enough shares to make them listen, he said. The building belongs to a foundation now, not to Hale and Klein, not to me, to a fund earmarked for community spaces. She frowned. For what she asked, there's no library anymore. There will be, he said, if you want it. Her jaw went slack. What she whispered. I've been thinking about that sentence, he said. The one you wrote in my head and those girls wrote in that letter. Every lost child deserves a warm place to sleep. You know what else they deserve? Stories. A place to hear them. A place to feel less lost. He gestured to the empty building. We could build that, he said, together. A small library, a reading room, after-school story times, and a shelf of fairy tales with the endings you like better. Her eyes shone. She shook her head slightly, as if trying to dislodge the image before it rooted. Noah, she said, that's huge. I'm a barista with 3 kids and a sprained wrist that still aches. I don't run libraries. I barely run my life. You've been running one out of a cafe backroom for years, he said gently. You've built worlds between shifts. I've seen it. She twisted the strap of her bag. I don't want to be your charity project, she said quietly. He flinched. He'd known it was coming. It still hurt. You're not, he said. This isn't me saying, let me rescue you. This is me saying, let me fix what my world broke. And let's put your name over the door too. She bit her lip. I don't know what I'm doing, she whispered. Good, he said. She laughed wetly. Lark tugged on her sleeve. Excuse me, the little girl said, pulling a folded paper from her pocket. We made a contract. Grace blinked. What she asked. A contract, Lark repeated, as if that should have been obvious. We wrote it. You have to read it. Grace unfolded the paper. Crayon letters marched unevenly across the page. Nobody is charity if everybody gives something. Mama will read stories. Mr. Noah will fix broken things. We will listen and put books back where they go. This is fair. Below that, 3 signatures in different colors. Lumi had drawn a star instead of dotting the I in her name. Grace's vision wavered. They're right, Noah said softly. You're not just getting, you're giving. Without you, it's just a room with shelves. With you, it's a nest. A nest, she repeated. A place stories land, he said, and where kids can land too, when the world is too big. She stared at the building, the dusty windows, the chipped door, the possibility. Finally, she looked back at him. Conditions, she said. He straightened. I'm listening, he replied. First, she said, no corporate logos on the door. No Hale and Klein banners. This is for the neighborhood, not for your press releases. Done, he said. Second, she said, it doesn't get named after you. He winced theatrically. Not even Noah's Nook, he asked. Especially not Noah's Nook, she said. It has a name already. It does, he asked. She nodded, glancing at the girls. The Storyteller's Nest, she said. Lara clapped. We drew a sign, she said, producing another crumpled piece of paper with a tree and books hanging like fruit. Noah smiled. I like it, he said. Third condition. Grace took a breath. If we do this, she said, we do it as partners. Not as a savior and a saved. You don't make decisions alone, even if you're the one writing the checks. He held her gaze. I wouldn't dare, he said. She nodded once. Okay then, she said. Lumi squealed. We're getting a library, she yelled to no one in particular. Mrs. Alvarez appeared behind them, grocery bags in hand. About time, she said. I've been bored out of my mind. Grace laughed. You're hired, she told the older woman, head of shelves. Mrs. Alvarez grinned. Always wanted a promotion, she said. The renovations took weeks. The building's bones were good, but the years had layered dust on every surface. Volunteers from the neighborhood showed up with paint rollers and toolboxes. Noah wore old jeans and a stained t-shirt. The girls wore overalls splattered with color. Grace stood at the back wall one morning, brush in hand, painting a mural of a tree. Its branches reached toward the ceiling, books tucked in its leaves. On the trunk, she wrote, in careful script, every lost child deserves a warm place to sleep, and a story to dream in. Your handwriting's better than when we were 12, Noah said, coming up behind her. Yours is still terrible, she replied, eyeing his crooked attempt at painting the word exit on a sign. He laughed. Good thing we balance each other out, he said. She dipped her brush in blue. Good thing, she echoed. On opening night, the shelves were not full, but they were not empty either. Donations had come in gently used picture books, chapter books, a few battered classics. Hale and Klein's foundation had quietly covered the rest, ordering sets of essentials, delivered without fanfare. Children filled the space, chattering. Parents stood in the back, eyes wide. Mrs. Alvarez hovered near the checkout desk, running her hand over the old scanner like greeting an old friend. Grace sat in a worn armchair salvaged from a thrift store, triplets at her feet. Noah stood off to the side, hands in his pockets, watching. Are you going to say something? Grace whispered, glancing up at him. He shook his head. This is your room, he said. Your voice should be the first one they hear. She swallowed. Okay, she said. She cleared her throat. Hi, she told the room. I'm Grace. Some of you know me from Willow and Bean. Some of you don't know me at all. She smiled. This used to be a library, she said. A long time ago. Then it wasn't. Now it is again. Because some people decided we still deserve stories. She looked briefly at Noah, then away. This isn't a quiet place, she went on. Not really, and it's a place where you can be loud if you're excited about a book. It's a place where you can sit when the world feels too big and listen to someone else's story until yours feels a little less heavy. She lifted the first book. It's a place where, if you don't like the ending, she said, we can learn how to tell a new one together. Kids leaned forward. Parents softened. She began to read. Noah listened, the sound of her voice weaving into the walls. He thought of a scrawny boy on a thin carpet in a different building, under harsher lights, hearing that same voice pull him through nights that would otherwise have swallowed him whole. He blinked hard. Mrs. Alvarez nudged him with an elbow. You did good, she murmured. So did she, he said. The older woman nodded. She always does. She said she just needed someone to remind her. After the last child left and the lights were dimmed to a soft glow, Grace locked the front door of the Storyteller's nest. Snow had started to fall outside, small flakes floating in the streetlights. Come with me, Noah said. He led her around the side of the building to the small yard out back. Once, it had been a collection of broken bottles and weeds. Now, several someones had cleared it, strung lights along the fence, set a bench under a young tree. Tonight, a circle of paper lanterns glowed on the ground, forming a warm ring around the bench. Grace laughed softly. You and your drama, she said. My drama got us a library, he pointed out. Fair, she said. Snow dusted her hair. Lantern light painted her face gold. He took a breath. You changed my ending once, he said. In that old library. You took a story that said kids like us stayed lost and told me something different. She looked at him, eyes reflecting light. You changed mine, she replied. You came back. He smiled, nervous. And suddenly he wasn't a CEO or an ice king or anything, but a boy in a too big sweatshirt, standing under fluorescent lights, asking a girl if she would sit with him. He lowered himself to one knee. Grace's hand flew to her mouth. Noah, she said. He pulled a small box from his coat pocket. Inside lay a simple ring. No diamonds, no logo. Just a smooth band of silver, warm from his palm. He turned it so she could see the engraving on the inside. Grace, Lumi, Lyra, Lark. I'm not just asking to marry you, he said quietly. I'm asking if I can be home for all four of you. If we can build something that looks a lot like this library, messy, full of voices, with room for more than one story. Tears spilled over. You really are terrible at simple gestures, she whispered. You go straight for life-changing. Occupational hazard, he said. She laughed through her tears. Lumi, Lyra, and Lark burst out of the back door, unable to contain themselves any longer. Did she say yes? Lumi shouted. You weren't supposed to watch, Noah protested weakly. We're quality control, Lark declared. Grace wiped her cheeks and looked at him. I spent a long time telling myself I didn't deserve a happy ending, she said, that it was for other people with easier stories. She glanced at the library windows, where warmth spilled into the night. Maybe I was wrong, she finished. She held out her left hand. Yes, she said simply. He slid the ring onto her finger, his own vision blurring. The girls screamed with joy, launching themselves at both of them, nearly knocking him over. Paper lanterns bobbed as small feet danced around them. We have a real Santa now, Lyra crowed. Noah laughed, wrapping one arm around Grace's shoulders, the other catching a flailing triplet. I'm terrible at chimneys, he warned. We don't have a chimney, Lark informed him. Just a door. You already found your way in. Grace leaned against him. Snow fell, soft and steady, settling on brick and branches in the roof of a small building full of books. In the circle of lantern light, 4 figures huddled together, close enough to share warmth, close enough to hear each other breathe. Once upon a time, a boy had promised a girl he would find his way back to her. He'd taken the long way. But in the end, under a December sky, surrounded by stories and small hands and the quiet hum of a neighborhood that finally had its nest back, Noah Hale kept his promise. And for the first time, the ending of their story didn't need fixing.